her mother is 54 years old. Her mother is 5 years older.
In the moment, it just felt like, what? Like, is this fun for him? Is this like a test?
Lori Harvey's lawsuit against Diddy isn't just a scandal, it's a legal time bomb that could keep him in prison for years. Diddy is already serving over 4 years at MDC Brooklyn after a conviction under the Mann Act related to transporting women for so-called private encounter. But now, with Lori stepping forward and accusing him of the same psychological manipulation and violent control that Cassie Ventura testified about in court, we're looking at a potential sentence extension that could derail any chance of early release.
So she testified, excuse me, that she was Diddy's ex-assistant. She said he her, sexually assaulted her in various ways multiple times. He exacted unbelievable violence against her, threatened her, one point allegedly threatened to take her phone and use anything on the phone.
This new case doesn't exist in a vacuum. Lori's accusations mirror the same chilling tactics Cassie described on the witness stand just months ago. Coercive control, intimidation, and forced participation in what insiders called freakoffs. Private events that blended substance use with multi-day intimate encounters that left participants physically and mentally drained. According to Cassie, these sessions were filmed, used as leverage, and served as twisted currency in Diddy's empire of control. Her texts, shown to the jury, painted a disturbing portrait. She said she loved the freak-offs, but later testified that those words were pure survival strategy. As she told the court, "I would say loving FOS were just words at that point. Words said to keep the violence at bay."
Bankman Fried were in the unit that was one floor above mine. You know, so in terms of like the setting, it's a fairly decent chance that the room I'm describing is similar to where Diddy is. Yeah.
So now we have to ask, was Lori Harvey just another player in the same nightmare? According to her legal filing, the answer is yes. She alleges Diddy lured her in using fame and access just like he did with Cassie, then used those same tools to isolate and dominate her. The lawsuit claims a pattern of bullying, emotional breakdowns, and sudden disappearances from public view that only makes sense when held up to what Cassie described. And here's where the story turns from disturbing to potentially explosive. Because while Cassie's ordeal was unfolding in a courtroom, Lori's was happening in plain sight. We saw her with Diddy in Italy and Mexico in 2019, matching outfits, cozy lunches, and family appearances. Yes, family, because Steve Harvey, Lori's stepfather, was seen dining with them during one of those trips. And yet, despite the headlines, despite the age gap, and despite Lori's past rumored involvement with Diddy's own son, Justin Combs, Steve stayed silent. No public statement, no pushback, no concern, just smiling photos from the yacht deck. That silence is now ringing louder than ever. Their breakup came just months later. No press release, no drama, just a sudden unfollow on Instagram and an eerie return to curated selfies and cryptic quotes on Lori's social feeds. Quotes about freedom, betrayal, and starting over. At the time, it all looked like standard post-breakout gloss. But in hindsight, when you read Cassie's testimony, where she explained how she'd pretend to enjoy the freak-offs just to survive, it doesn't feel like posturing anymore. It feels like code.
Check me and be like, hey, like, what you doing? You good? Yeah. You need to shake out of it. And maybe be like, okay, yeah, you're right, I'm tripping. I'm good, regardless.
But here's where it gets even darker. Insiders close to both the music industry and high-end event circles are now saying what many suspected all along. Steve Harvey wasn't just a bystander. He was reportedly a frequent guest at Diddy's infamous parties, the same parties that multiple accusers have now linked to illegal activity, including coercion, surveillance, and recruitment. And if that's true, we have to ask, did Steve Harvey know what was happening? Or worse, was he part of it? Because Steve Harvey doesn't exactly have a spotless track record when it comes to women. His second ex-wife, Mary Lee Harvey, filed a lawsuit for a jaw-dropping $60 million, accusing him of infidelity, mental abuse, and manipulation. She even released YouTube videos claiming he cheated with his current wife, Marjorie, while they were still married. During their divorce, Steve enforced a gag order that eventually landed Mary in jail for 30 days when she violated it. That's not just messy, it's a pattern. A man who enforces silence and litigates loyalty. Sound familiar?
I'm Christian, but I ain't that good a Christian. You know.
Now, place that alongside Lori's sudden entanglement with a powerful man nearly 30 years her senior, someone who, by 2019, was already the subject of whispers about control, substances, and what really went down behind closed doors at those so-called celebrity retreats. Diddy's own circle referred to them as freak-offs. Cassie testified that she would be flown to hotels, given cocktails of substances, and left dehydrated and disoriented for days, She told the court that Diddy kept footage of these events and used it to ensure obedience, and after she tried to leave him in 2018, she said he retaliated violently. The parallels with Lori's timeline are chilling. Public appearances, followed by sudden radio silence. A high-profile pairing, followed by strategic distancing. And now, years later, a lawsuit. According to sources familiar with the case, Lori's legal team has already compiled references to Cassie's testimony as part of a broader strategy to show a consistent pattern of predatory behavior. And if the judge agrees, Diddy's legal troubles are nowhere near over. But Lori's lawsuit also reopens another unresolved thread: the nature of Steve Harvey's relationship with Diddy. For years, they were seen together at industry functions, private golf clubs, and luxury resorts. And now, amid reports that Diddy's properties were raided in connection with trafficking investigations, people are revisiting those connections with fresh eyes, especially given what's coming out about who was present at those events and who stayed silent afterward.
Interestingly, we haven't seen the indictments yet. There's been some time lag. I suppose it will take some time to go through all the forensic, evidence.
So the obvious question is, if Steve Harvey had even an inkling of what went on at those parties, why didn't he step in when his daughter started showing up in paparazzi photos with Diddy? And not just as a guest. Lori was often seen with Diddy's arm around her, seated next to him on vacation or shopping in Manhattan in coordinated outfits. It's not the kind of thing a protective father usually ignores, especially not one who built a reputation as America's moral compass, with bestsellers about knowing your worth and setting boundaries in relationships. And yet, silence. No on-the-record comment, no viral soundbite from a Family Feud blooper, nothing. Just golf trips, festival promotions, and continued public praise for Marjorie, whose own name appears in the timelines of Steve's ex-wife as the woman he left her for. Some former associates have started quietly suggesting that Lori's relationship with Diddy may have been part of a broader understanding between the families. It sounds conspiratorial until you consider the broader pattern. Diddy has long surrounded himself with young women connected to his business partners, staff, or social peers. Cassie was a rising performer under his label. Jane Doe, another key accuser, was connected through mutual industry contact. If Lori was introduced under the guise of family friendship and then suddenly became a traveling companion, what exactly was that arrangement?
Are you done with Hollywood because of this specific reason?
I'm still working. I still, I haven't made the money necessary to do all of the other stuff. So I still have to go and do the chitlin circuit. I still have to do the job that I need to. But eventually, I've done what I set out to do, which was to redefine the universe. I've proven what I've set out to do, and that's why I have all the patents. Whether they evaluate it or not, that's...
And then there's the matter of Steve Harvey's ex-wife's lawsuit, filed years after their divorce, but pointing to long-standing emotional damage and alleging a wider pattern of manipulation and betrayal. In her public statements, Mary said Steve's romantic choices were entangled with power plays and image control. She even referenced a letter allegedly from Marjorie that hinted at a long-term affair. So if Steve was capable of hiding a secret relationship for years from his own wife, why should anyone assume he didn't know what Diddy was doing behind closed doors? Industry insiders are already whispering that if Lori's case goes to trial, it won't just be Diddy's behavior on trial, it'll be Steve's silence. Prosecutors could argue that his access to Diddy's private events gave him knowledge of the darker undercurrents. And if that's proven, he could face scrutiny not just as a stepfather, but as an enabler. Because if Diddy's prison sentence gets extended, the next question won't be about Lori, it'll be about Steve and what he knew all along.
I think if I'm handicapping it, if somebody comes to me and says, Mark, what do you think about an appeal? It's not Sean Combs, it's somebody else. The judge found sentencing guidelines that were over 70 and the judge went under by 20. And then I'm asked, I went to trial, I lost on a couple of counts and the judge went under what probation suggested the guidelines are. I would tell you that an appeal is it's always a heavy lift. It just becomes a Herculean lift.
Diddy's defense called his lifestyle swinging, but the jury saw it for what it was, a pattern of control, coercion, and exploitation. In court, his legal team tried to paint the so-called freakoffs as wild but consensual private escapades between adults who knew what they were signing up for. They referenced texts, flirtatious messages, and even moments where Cassie seemed to play along. But then came the testimony. Raw, methodical, devastating. Cassie described being physically pulled into those encounters, kept numb through substance use, and filmed without knowing the full extent of how those recordings would later be used against her. She told the court she developed a dependency on medication just to endure the aftermath of these sessions. She didn't hide the pain, she didn't try to spin it. Instead, she looked straight ahead and named it. Abuse masquerading as freedom. And when the defense tried to label it as part of a swinger's lifestyle, Cassie didn't flinch. They're very different, she said. He was controlling the whole situation. That one sentence undercut an entire narrative. Because this wasn't about open relationships or adult play. It was about isolation, surveillance, and power. If Cassie's experience was a nightmare, what does that say about Lori's time with Diddy? Because the parallels don't end with the parties. In 2019, Lori was suddenly seen jet-setting with Diddy across Mexico and Italy, matching outfits, sunset dinners, appearances with her parents, yes, including Steve Harvey, at upscale restaurants. And then just as quickly as it started, it vanished. One unfollow on Instagram, one Instagram story denying an engagement, one carefully worded post saying, "Stop believing everything y'all read on a blog," but no answers, no clarity, no explanation for why someone with such tightly controlled image management would ever allow those rumors to spiral, unless the silence was by design. Because Lori Harvey is no rookie when it comes to PR. She's built her brand on control, discretion, and the power of suggestion. So when she walks away from a high-profile pairing and scrubs it from the record, we have to wonder, what was she really distancing herself from?
And you can't live your life based on like what other people are gonna think, how other people are gonna feel, because at the end of the day, it's you, it's your life.
Right.
So it's gonna make you happy.
And what was Steve Harvey doing while all this was unfolding? Because the family photo apps didn't end when the headlines started. In fact, they seemed to accelerate. Steve was there during that Italian lunch with Diddy and Lori. He was visible, present, and according to sources who attended other events, seen at Diddy's parties in the months leading up to that public fling. Not just once, repeatedly, and not in the polite parent kind of way. According to 3 former attendees who spoke to journalists off the record, Steve was comfortable, on first-name terms with the security staff, and, as one person put it, moving through the space like someone who'd been invited 100 times before. That matters, because Steve's silence isn't just suspicious, it's a pattern. His entire public persona has been built on morality, advice, and being the wise uncle who tells women how to protect their hearts. But his real history is a lot murkier. His ex-wife, Mary, didn't just file for divorce. She filed a $60 million lawsuit accusing him of emotional torment, betrayal, and what she described as a years-long campaign to control the narrative around their family. She accused him of cheating, of gaslighting, of leveraging legal power to shut her down. When she broke a gag order, she went to jail. 30 days behind bars for speaking. Steve, meanwhile, went on to write more bestsellers and host more game shows. And we're supposed to believe that when Lori ended up entangled with a man, now convicted of coercive, exploitative behavior, Steve had no clue? That he didn't see the signs Cassie and others have now testified about under oath? That when Lori unfollowed Diddy, refused to confirm the relationship, and posted cryptic quotes, it was all just millennial relationship noise? Because here's the twist. Insiders claim Steve's presence at Diddy's parties wasn't just social, it was transactional. 2 entertainment managers, both formerly connected to Diddy's East Coast circle, have told reporters that deals were often made behind closed doors. Not contracts, understandings, favor swaps, appearances in exchange for introductions, business leverage exchange for social capital. And one rumor that keeps resurfacing, that Lori's pairing with Diddy wasn't spontaneous at all, that it was arranged, negotiated, positioned as a move to boost visibility for her and respectability for him at a time when his public image was beginning to fracture.
This guy,
50's not to be
No, don't
50's not to be
Fifth. Y'all don't even, Fifth is
play around
different.
if you want to.
Fifth is different.
Now, is there proof that Steve brokered that arrangement directly? No signed contract has surfaced. But the implication, according to those who worked in Diddy's event logistics, is that everything in his world operated on power dynamics. If Lori was offered the chance to stand beside Diddy in public, it didn't happen without context, and the context was Steve, one of the few public figures whose credibility might still soften this scandal. One source put it this way: when Diddy brought her to family dinners, it wasn't romance, it was strategy. If even part of that is true, Lori's lawsuit could blow open more than just Diddy's past. Because now that Diddy's been sentenced to just over 4 years and new charges are under review, there's one critical piece still in play: Lori's case. And if her legal team continues pushing the narrative that she was manipulated using the same blueprint described by Cassie, substance use, filmed encounters, emotional coercion, then the question becomes, who enabled it? Who watched it happen? Who stood in the room and chose not to say anything? Because if Diddy's sentence gets extended, Lori's lawsuit could force Steve Harvey into the spotlight, and not as a concerned stepfather, but as a potential accomplice, a man who had access, opportunity, and incentive to stay quiet. And that changes the story completely. This stops being about one man's crimes. It becomes about a system, about the men who built walls around each other, who traded reputations like currency, who showed up at parties, smiled for photos, and left behind a trail of trauma.
Unfortunately, we're all going to take a disgusting trip to his seedy, awful world. You know, it's the man has no class. He has no kindness in his dark, dark heart. And he's depraved. That's my opinion. This is a depraved, disgusting individual. about whom I wish to hear nothing after this trial is done.
So as the courts consider whether Diddy's prison time should be extended, we're left asking, what else hasn't been exposed? What secrets are still buried under NDAs, settlements, and private jet itineraries? And how many more women were told to smile, play along, and keep quiet just to keep the men around them comfortable? Because the real question isn't just about Diddy's crimes. It's about who helped him get away with them. What do you think? Was Lori just another victim or a pawn in something even bigger? And when the spotlight finally turns to Steve Harvey, will he face accountability or walk away again untouched? Let us know what you think in the comments, and until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and don't look away.